The congregation of Sharp Corner Baptist Church had grown threefold in just 2 years under Pastor Samuel's leadership.
My brothers and sisters, today we gather in this house of the Lord with hearts full of gratitude and praise.
His sermon drew crowds from neighboring towns, and whispers of miraculous healings spread like wildfire through the community. What they didn't know was the dark price behind their pastor's divine gifts. It had started innocently enough. Grace, the church's choir mistress, was known throughout the community as a devoted prayer warrior. Her voice could move the congregation to tears, and her faith seemed unshakable.
Lord, my God, when I in awesome wonder.
When Pastor Samuel first approached her with promises of marriage and a future together, she believed his word came from a place of genuine love.
God has shown me that we are meant to be together. Our union will bring great blessings to this church.
He had whispered after choir practice one evening. Grace, young and trusting, had given herself to him completely. But as the months passed and no wedding plans materialized, she began to question his intentions. Still, something compelled her to continue their secret meetings. She couldn't understand the strange pull that drew her to him night after night. When Michael, a carpenter from the next town, asked for a hand in marriage, Grace thought it was a chance to break free from the pastor's hold. She married Michael in a beautiful ceremony, with Pastor Samuel himself officiating. His smile never betrayed the rage that burned within him. But the spell he had woven around Grace was too strong to be broken by marriage vows. Night after night, Grace found herself rising from her bed at the stroke of midnight, her mind clouded as if in a dream. She would slip out of the house where her husband lay sleeping, drawn by an invisible force to where Pastor Samuel waited at their compound gates. He would lead her into the dense bush behind the church, and there, under the cover of darkness, their unholy pact would continue. Michael noticed his wife's exhaustion, the dark circles under her eyes, and her distant demeanor. When he asked about her midnight prayers, Grace would look at him with confusion, as if waking from a trance. "I must pray for the church," she would say, though she had no memory of leaving their bed. For 3 nights, Michael watched his wife's strange behavior with growing concern. On the 4th night, he decided to follow her. His heart broke as he witnessed what he thought was his wife's infidelity, but nothing could have prepared him for what happened next. As Michael stepped into the clearing, where his wife and the pastor were entangled, the very air seemed to crack. With supernatural energy, a deafening thunderclap split the night sky. Though no storm clouds were visible, lightning struck the ground between them, and in that brilliant flash, something shattered. Grace's eyes suddenly cleared, as if a veil had been torn away. She looked around in horror, seeing herself in the pastor's arm, with no memory of how she had come to be there. What is this?" she gasped, pulling away from Pastor Samuel. "What have I done? How did I get here?" Michael stood frozen, his world crumbling before his eyes. Pastor Samuel's face twisted with fury as he pointed a trembling finger at the carpenter. "You have broken what was not meant to be broken," the pastor said. "Speak of this to anyone, and death will find you before dawn." But Michael had seen enough. Without another word, he turned and walked away, leaving his wife sobbing in the depths. Her mind finally free, but her heart shattered by the weight of actions she couldn't remember choosing. Grace returned to their home that night, but Michael was gone. He had packed his few belongings and left only a note. "I cannot live with what I have seen. Forgive me." In the days that followed, Grace continued to attend Corner Baptist Church, but the joy had drained from her voice. Her songs became hollow echoes, and her prayers felt like they hit a ceiling. The congregation noticed the change in their beloved choir mistress, but none dare ask what had happened. Desperate for answers and healing, Grace began visiting other churches. It was at a small chapel on the outskirts of town that she heard a sermon about spiritual bondage and the power of confession to break demonic hold. The preacher spoke of courage, the courage to expose darkness, even when it wore the marks of authority. That Sunday, Grace returned to Sharp Corner Baptist Church for the last time as Pastor Samuel began a sermon about the blessings of obedience. Grace stood up in the middle of the congregation.
I have something to confess. This man is not who you think he is.
Pastor Samuel's face went pale, but Grace continued. He promised to marry me, make me believe God had destined us to be together. Even after I married my husband, something made me go to him every night. I couldn't control myself, couldn't remember anything. Until the night my husband followed me and the spell was broken. The congregation sat in shocked silence. Pastor Samuel tried to speak, to deny her words, but suddenly he began to scratch at his arm, fanatically, as if invisible fire ants were crawling under his skin. "Stop this!" he screamed, but the scratching grew more violent. Red welts appeared on his arm and neck, and his carefully groomed appearance dissolved into chaos. "You want the truth?" he shrieked, his voice no longer carrying his practiced smoothness. "You want to know how I built this church? How I performed those miracles? It was her. Every time I lay with her, every stolen night, it filled the darkness that gave me power. I bound her to me with spells and incantation, made her my unwilling sacrifice to forces you cannot comprehend." The congregation erupted into horror and disbelief. Some fled the building, others fell to their knees in prayer. Pastor Samuel continued to claw at his skin, his confession spilling out between screams of agony. The growth, the healing, the prosperity, it all came from her stolen virtue, her unknowing participation in rituals older than this town, older than this faith. "You think you follow?" As the last word left his lips, Pastor Samuel collapsed, his body convulsing as the dark powers that had sustained him abandoned their field servant. The building itself seemed to shudder, as if awakening from a long, troubled sleep. Grace stood in the midst of the chaos, tears streaming down her face. But for the first time in years, her heart felt light. The truth had set her free. Even as it destroyed everything around her, the church scattered that day. Its members left to deal with the fact that they had unknowingly participated in something unholy. Grace left the town soon after, seeking a new life far from the shadows of Sharp Corner Baptist Church. As for Pastor Samuel, he was found the next morning in his study, aged beyond his years, muttering about contracts written in blood and prices that could never be fully paid. The building that had once housed his congregation now stood empty, a testament to the dangerous seduction of power obtained through darkness. And in the silence that followed, the small town slowly began to heal, having learned that not all who speak of God serve the light, and that sometimes the greatest act of faith is the courage to expose the truth, no matter how terrible it might be.